All right, and we're back with the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here for the Pop Culture Cosmos. Well, we're getting right down to the final days before a new console generation, where you have the Xbox Series matching up against the PlayStation 5. It's a new console war, a new console generation, and here today to talk about all the great things that are going on with it is a great person indeed. You got to check out what he's doing today on Anchor or wherever you get your podcasts. That's available right now at the Gaming Review. That's Gaming Review Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. I tell you what, I checked out his first show. It's a great show that covers the entire gambit of video games, including PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, PC, and more. It's a great person indeed. Again, please check out his show, Gaming Review. It is Jeremy Demers. And Jeremy, great to have you on the program today.
Yeah, thanks, Gerald. It's good to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, how excited were you first off? Since, like I said, this is a new venture for you as far as the podcasting realm for video games is concerned. How do you think it went for you so far?
I mean, I think it's been going all right. I've been playing video games my whole life, seems like, so I got a lot to contribute, and I figured I'd dabble myself into it and start streaming and putting out some videos and some content.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. No harm in that. And as someone who, like you, has been playing video games all his life, but way back to Pong, let's just put it that way. It's been something that I've enjoyed throughout my life. And as you can see behind my head, you can see the posters of the various video games that are out there that have touched my life in one way or another. But there's so much to look forward to because, again, November 10th, we've got the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X coming out. Plus, PlayStation 5 comes out just 2 days later. So I want to hear your thoughts as we're on the verge of this console generation. Who has the early lead on this? Because, as you know, a lot of momentum usually helps the situation. With PlayStation 4, it was that E3 showcase where they showed the simple fact of two individuals, such as the executives that work for PlayStation, giving a disc to each other to represent the fact that you could go ahead and share your games from one system to another, which Xbox was threatening that you couldn't do at the time, which basically for me set Xbox back at least a couple years, in my opinion, as far as sales-wise. So I want to hear your thoughts heading into this console generation. Who do you think has the early advantage?
Well, I started with PlayStation, with the PlayStation 1 and 2. And when the 360 came out, we all know that came out before the PS3. So I jumped ship and kind of been more of an Xbox gamer this whole time since.
And a PlayStation 4 learned from that and came out, actually, I think, was it a week earlier than Xbox One, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, pretty close. And when you're on a platform, it's really hard to shift, especially when you have all your games there and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I remember that time when that came out, when Xbox stated that they weren't going to allow. They were going to lock the game to your account, so you wouldn't be able to basically sell your game aftermarket. And that was a big thing. I almost jumped ship there, but I stayed packed, and I'm actually pretty excited for where they're headed.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. I'm excited for both consoles coming out. Obviously, a lot of good word for both. But I want to hear your thoughts on the Xbox, because it did, I think right now of the two, and I'm being honest with you, because I have all the systems like you. I've had all the systems. I have actually to my left here. I'm looking at my PlayStation 4, my Xbox One, and my Nintendo Switch. So I've had all the systems. But as I come into it, I'm kind of thinking that Xbox, with the major purchase of the Bethesda Studios, the entire thing, that has to be sort of like a little bit of a step in the right direction. they're understanding their mistakes from the past and leading into this generation, even though they don't have launch games. And we'll go into launch games or lack thereof here in a minute. But I think the purchase of Bethesda shows that if you get an Xbox, your future is really, it's very set for the future going forward.
Yeah, I think they can match. They can compete with the exclusives now, at least. That was the one thing that it was missing this whole time. Watching PS players having all these exclusive games, it really kind of hurt me inside, not being able to play Spider-Man on an Xbox, so I'm definitely excited where they're going with everything.
Absolutely. And then you have the Miles Morales Spider-Man game coming right away to PlayStation 5. So that's definitely something I think is probably going to be a little bit disappointing to you if you go for Xbox first, isn't it?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to pre-order either one. So, and I just found out that you can't go to the store. So I'm going to try to, at least for the PlayStation anyway. You can't buy it at the store launch day. You have to have a pre-order, or you got to try to buy it online. They're not doing any store sales.
Well, so, I hope I think that's the case as well. Although, as you and I have seen over the years, somehow people are able to finagle their way through it and somehow manage to come out of a Best Buy or a Costco or a Target or whatever with one, and you're like, how do they do that? So some people are able to work their magic on these type of things, but for the most part, you're right, because of the pre-order snafus from both companies, and both companies are guilty of this. It's created quite a problem, and I understand that there's a shortage in production due to what's gone on in 2020, and I get that, but still, to not provide consumers with the ability to go ahead and purchase it day one and go to the stores and do that, I think that's also a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So you said you're leaning towards Xbox this time around. Is that correct?
Yep. It's really hard. I mean, I got 200 games on my Xbox portfolio there, and to leave those behind, especially when you literally get all those games on the new console right off the day one. So if I were to go to PlayStation, I'd have to start from scratch, and I wouldn't have anything.
And many of them will load faster on the SSD drive, and some of them may even have resolution bump ups that will be free of charge for those games. So that's very attractive for anyone who's getting a PlayStation 5, or in your case, an Xbox Series, eventually when you can get your hands on one.
Yeah, I mean, with the PlayStation, I've always used it as like an exclusive machine, and then I play most of my gaming on the Xbox. Kind of similar with the Nintendo Switch. I play all the exclusives on there, and I use the Xbox for anything that comes out multi-platform.
I'll tell you what, it's very interesting to see. And let me ask you this. When you're coming up with your own show and you started off with it and whatnot, and once again, I'm speaking to Jeremy Demers, you got to check out his show, Gaming Review. It's based on Anchor, but you can catch it pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts. I got a chance to listen to it, and I'll tell you what, off to a much better start than I was over 10 years ago in 2009 when I started podcasting. So I'll give you much props on that. So you're off to a great start. I hope everyone gives it a listen out there. But I'll tell you what, I wanted to ask you this. When it comes to the game lineups and the game launch lineups, you and I know that we've seen in the past with these consoles, the launch lineups, for the most part, people just pick them apart. And sometimes, in some cases, deservedly so. In this case, when it comes to both the PlayStation and Xbox, PlayStation has a little bit of offerings when it comes to exclusive launch games. Xbox really doesn't have that much of all. And I think if you're buying an Xbox right now, an Xbox Series S or an Xbox Series X, you're really going off a lot on faith.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that PlayStation doesn't really have much of a launch window, bunch of launch games either.
Both don't. But I think of the two, I mean, it's like little to none.
Yeah, I mean, if you consider the Spider-Man game, I guess it's from what I've heard, it's about an 8-hour game as a launch. it's a great selling point for Sony, but if you really look deep into it, neither company really has a lot to offer right
No,
off the bat.
Godfall, I think, is coming to the
Yeah.
PlayStation 5 as exclusive, and a couple others. But again, it's not the, we've talked before. I mean, we've talked before to friends, I'm sure, or when we're at game stores or whatnot, and we've complained about how certain consoles have come out with just maybe 6, 7, 8 games at the most as far as the launch lineup is concerned. That's huge compared to what we're seeing from both consoles this time around.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're both banking. They're both banking on previous games that you can pop in your new unit and get hopefully a better experience out of it. I think that's what they're banking on right now when it comes to both systems.
And I would have to say that in that aspect, I believe that Xbox has a little bit of an advantage, at least on my end, because from what I'm told and what I'm hearing, that I just download the game and my save is ready to go, so I can just go right into the game right away. And what I've heard about the PlayStation is you have to actually transfer your saves from your PlayStation over unless you have the PS Plus network, I believe.
It's a little bit more confusing.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way. So, something always with PlayStation, ease of use as far as one system to another, or transferring things, or things of that nature, or backwards compatibility, seems to always been a sticking point with PlayStation as far as is concerned. They don't always have the easiest way of doing things. But again, I'm not going to fault PlayStation at all. They won the last console generation with well over 100 million PlayStation 4 units out there. And obviously you don't want to shut that market out. So for the foreseeable future, anybody who has an Xbox One, and they've got over 40 million out there, at least to my recollection as far as what the last sales numbers were. And whoever has a PlayStation 4, I don't think they're going to give up on you as far as any developers are concerned. I mean, there's going to be a long period of time where you're going to see games coming on both systems for quite some time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think you kind of have to put those PC players in the Xbox corner too, as if they're in their network, because of the way that they're branching out. That's one of the things I like with Xbox as well, is I can literally pick up a game that I'm playing on my Xbox, and if I get kicked off the TV or something happens with family, wants to watch something, I can go in my room and pick it right back up on my PC at the same place. So, and also with the mobile, they have their mobile app that you can, obviously not yet on Apple, that you can go around with it, but you can also stream the game from your Xbox to your phone if you're right next to your Xbox on your Apple phone. So
it seems Xbox is a little bit more forward thinking, and so I give them a little bit more props in that. PlayStation obviously has a little bit larger base to go off of, and that's obviously in their corner. So I give both on props on that. But I want to ask you this: when it comes to the Xbox, very popular in the United States, North America, and even in Europe. But in order to go ahead, I think, and be a factor as far as overall selling in this console generation, I think they're going to have to broaden their market base. I know in South America, they've broadened it over the past few years. Still, in the Far East, in places like Japan, where it's been heavily dominated by Nintendo and a Sony, of course, Xbox has really just, even though they've tried, made an effort, has really not gained any kind of dent there. What can they do this time around to promote that product well enough so that it'll get a more than favorable response this time around from, let's say, the Japanese public out there, because it is so important right now to at least gain some type of foothold. Sales-wise, it does help because they really are truly a video game buying market.
You know what? I wish I had the answer. I guess I'd have a job there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It doesn't seem like they really, I mean, not that they don't care, but it doesn't seem like they care as much about units sold, because they're going somewhere else with their network. It's not just about the console anymore. They just want you to get into their Game Pass with the PC or the console. So they're trying to get you in their ecosystem, so you pay that monthly subscription. I think that's the route that they're going. I actually thought before they announced these consoles that they were going to get rid of the generation and they were going to just give us another upgraded system and try to keep these Xbox Ones in the fold and just go a different route, which they are going a different route, not to that extreme, obviously, but I definitely like the way they're headed. But when you're PlayStation, when you want a generation, why would you change anything? And I think PlayStation's going to be ahead for quite a while. I don't know if Xbox is going to pass them, but I don't know if Xbox really matter. It doesn't. I don't think they really care as much about that.
Well, I would imagine that they care a little bit more about making a larger penetration. Let's say not winning per se, but if they can close that gap this time around where it's not being, for instance, in this previous generation, PlayStation more than doubled the amount of Xbox Ones that are out there. If they can close that gap a little bit, or even a little bit more than that, I think one way they can do that is by offering better exclusives than what PlayStation has to offer. Although PlayStation has had a tremendous library of exclusives that I've enjoyed. For instance, The Last of Us, Uncharted, which is one of my favorite series of all time, and so much more. They've done a great job of doing that. God of War, to say the least. But when it comes to Xbox, with the purchase of Bethesda, there's been talk of whether or not they will make these exclusives, will make them timed exclusives, or even just keep them outright exclusives for the entire generation. So I ask you this. If you wanted to go ahead and say, I want to go and have Xbox make a bigger dent this time around, would you go ahead and say Elder Scrolls? And I'm not talking about Starfield or any of the other projects that Bethesda comes out, or maybe even the mid-tier games that would be more advantageous for them to be a full exclusive. I'm talking about the two big games that they have in their arsenal, which is, well, I would say Fallout, but we don't know with Fallout 76 and that disaster. But I think Fallout still has a good enough name to be a big seller. And of course, Elder Scrolls, which Elder Scrolls 6 is in development at this point in time. Should they make it a fully exclusive game to only PC and the Xbox Series?
I would say yes. I think you spend all that money for that, and I think that's a big selling point. Like, they're going to get people to buy an Xbox. All those PlayStation buyers or those PlayStation players they're probably going to buy an Xbox now. Maybe not right away, but later down the road. I think that was one of the reasons why they came out with the S, so people wouldn't have to have another high spend a lot of money on a high-end machine, and they had, the option to buy something that was a little bit cheaper. That's what my take would be. I would say I think that's what they're doing. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine them buying Bethesda and then putting it everywhere. I think they want people to come to their network, and then if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you get these games not for free because you're paying for the Game Pass, but you get them from day one, right when they come out, if you're a Game Pass subscriber.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be very interesting because, again, you're talking about a series which the last game in it, Skyrim, got 35 million in sales. And so that's, you're not walking away from it perhaps as far as 35 million in sales, but the fact you're not putting it on every conceivable platform that you did previously, like with Skyrim, you're doing something as far as the trade-off is concerned. So you're banking, if you make it exclusive, you're banking heavily on the evolvement of the Games Pass concept. And like you said, it's not so much about the console itself, it's about the Games Pass and the opportunity that it brings. Because as we see with Netflix, as we see with Amazon, as we see with Disney Plus and all that, it's not about just you getting into the service. It's about you paying month after month after month. That's when the rewards really come. That's when you really start seeing the profit base from there. So I agree with you on that. It's not just about the now, it's about the future going forward.
Yes. And if you really think about it, other than what Horizon Zero Dawn, most of the exclusives from PlayStation, they stay with the PlayStation Network. They don't go to PC. So Xbox is coming out on Xbox and on PC. So sales for those games should be very similar to what PlayStation is when they're selling their games on their exclusive network, even if the numbers as far as people that have PlayStation versus Xbox is larger, because you have to add those PC players in with the Xbox players because they're selling the game to both of them.
One last question, and it's about the big property at Xbox right now, and that is Halo with Halo Infinite. We were all disappointed when we heard that Halo Infinite was being delayed pretty much a year. Let's put it that way. And we thought it was going to be an Xbox Series launch game, but unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. And there was some feedback as far as the resolution, and some people were talking about the graphics and things of that nature. What are your hopes for Xbox as far as Halo Infinite is concerned moving forward? Because when it comes to Halo Infinite, I know it hasn't met at least the initial expectations of everyone out there, but I think if you give it a chance, it could really be a game that could reignite everybody's love for Halo.
You know, it was a big bummer that wasn't coming out at launch. I think that they would be able to compete a lot better with PlayStation if they had that game at launch. But you know what? You got to get the game right. This is how often do they come out with Halo games? So if you put it out early and it's not right, people aren't going to play it. And sometimes those games that they're patching that they've already put out, they've lost their luster. And even if they get it right later down the road, there's nobody going back to the game. I guess Division.
I was going to say is that a thinly veiled shot at the Master Chief Collection?
I would say I was kind of referring more to like what Division had that issue.
Yeah,
when it came out, it wasn't really like ready to come out, I would say, and a lot of people were turned off by it, and they kind of got that game right later down the road. So I just feel like they should take their time and put the game out. I think people will buy a console when that game does come out if they waited. Bring some PlayStation players over. I think it was the right call to do that.
Well, we'll hopefully get a better game out of it when it does come out. We're thinking in late 2021, but we'll see. But once again, I have Jeremy Demers from Gaming Review. You got to go ahead and check out his awesome program and give him some support. He's just starting out with video game podcasts. He's got 2 already, a Super Mario Brothers 35, and obviously his initial weekend gaming review. So you want to go ahead and give him some props and give his show some love out there. It's available wherever you get your podcast. It's not that long. It's just a couple minutes here and there. It's really a quick listen. It's really a fun listen. So I've tried to give it the big sell for you, my friend. I want to ask you this, Jeremy. If you're out there listening right now, you got to go ahead and reach to the people out there why they need to check out in the distant future, just going forward with each and every week, with each and every episode, why they need to check out Gaming Review.
Well, I would say every week we're going to do one episode. It's going to come out on Sunday nights. It's going to be like a news thing. So you'll get your 3 minutes of news, like the top 4 to 5 little subjects, and everything between that will be reviews and maybe some interviews. But the podcast is mainly about the news, and we're going to give you those five little pointers every week, and it will be quick. So sometimes podcasts go quite a bit long, so I figured I'd do something a little bit shorter and get your news, and then you can go on with your day.
Sounds like a great plan indeed. And if you can, please check out Gaming Review for those quick video game bites right there for you as far as the latest news and information from the world of video games. Check it out today. Gaming Review, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for joining me on today's program. You're welcome to come back anytime. I want to go ahead and talk more video games with you. I mean, because video games is really a great place to be as far as pop culture is concerned, and I truly appreciate it. Any last thoughts on the way out?
Nope, I got nothing for you. I can't wait till launch. I hope I pick one up. Good luck, everybody else out there, to pick one up if you haven't pre-ordered. Seems like it's going to be real scarce out there.
It does seem like it. I do wish everyone success in finding that elusive console if you didn't pre-order ahead of time, especially you, Jeremy. I wish you constant success with your podcast. I wish you tremendous success in finding an Xbox Series that you really are coveting. So I'm hopeful everybody out there this holiday will be able to go ahead and get either the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series that they truly desire. And Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the program today. It was a pleasure to have you on the Pop Culture Cosmos.
Thanks, Gerald.